Hello everyone and welcome to another podcast called Camera Creations. It's now show number 9, we're still going, and it's the 22nd of October, Wednesday evening, and I have a motley crew with me this time, including one guest, but first the furniture of the show, which is to say hello to Chris Clayton, Ian Bundy and Chris Kelly. Hello gentlemen.
Evening.
Hello. And we've got a special this time because we've also invited Charlie Winston. We'll call you Charlie. Okay. We'll call you Charlie Winston, and he's joined us to talk on our special theme of the week of the show, which is street photography, as we mentioned last week. In fact, Chris C mentioned last week that he would try and get that together, and he has, so well done. tedsalmon.com/camera creations is our concocted website URL, which saves us money. So you'll have to put up with it not being a unique URL. And also there's the MeWe group, of course. If you get lost with any of that, it's at tedsalmon.com. But if an addendum from the last show I wanted to just throw in the pot, because we were talking on the last show about what we do with our photos, and nobody mentioned the digital photo frame. Now, I remember digital photo frames kicking about, 15, 20 years ago, and I never had one, never really appealed to me. It felt like an old person thing to do, but I stumbled into this article, I think it was on Engadget, which was highlighting some of the ways in which people use them and some of the decent bits of hardware to do it with. So I thought I'd just add this addendum and throw the idea around and say, does anyone use these? Has anyone used them? Do you think they're rubbish? Do you think it's a legitimate way to use your photographs after you've taken them? Or is it just for old people and grannies and people that don't have any other way of using them? Thoughts?
I have to say... Sorry, go on.
No, you carry on, Chris.
Okay. The house that I grew up in, we never had photographs around the house. Whereas my in-laws, I'm married to one of 3 sisters, their parents' house and all of the sisters' houses are full of photographs on sideboards and on fireplaces and mantelpieces.
Yeah.
So they were always having family photos around, but my family never did. And certainly my mother-in-law, bless her, when she was around, she used to have a digital photo frame that she put stuff up. But it's not something that I've ever had. So maybe, you're right, Ted, maybe it was an older person's thing.
Yeah, maybe. Anyone else?
For me, the ones that you linked, they're all a bit small, 10-inch. I guess these are like tabletop frames, would they be?
That was the purpose of his review. He was purposely going for that kind of size, yeah.
I remember looking a few months ago at the ones that you put on the wall, sort of 20-inch or bigger, and they were sort of prohibitively expensive, but I would want them on the wall. I wouldn't want them on a desktop, personally.
Right.
But that's my only sort of contribution, is that a photo should be on a wall.
There was one that Samsung put together. We covered it in the Tech Addicts podcast a while back, and that was a whacking great big one for the wall. And apparently it got quite a lot of kudos. But you're right, it was I can't remember how much, but certainly over £1,000. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. I forget. Well, I can't remember if it was Samsung or not. The influencer chap, Mr. Who's the Boss, he went through a whole series of kitting out his new house, and he went for a couple of these flat panel TVs that you put on the wall that were specifically intended for displaying photographs as well as. So I think they had a subscription. You could have pre-shot stuff, or you could put your own on it, but don't think it was Samsung. I might be wrong.
Right. Yeah, that's the only one I thought of.
Maybe to add to that, I've got a talking of Samsung Frame TV. So that is flat on the wall with a picture frame around it. I think it's probably, I would say, nearly 10 years old now, but it still goes strong. You can put your own images on there. You've got your own mounts and things like that. It looks quite good. Even now, I mean, as I say, it's quite old technology, but it sits in the dining room and acts as a picture frame or a TV. So it's pretty good. If it ever went wrong, I'd probably get another one.
According to this article, there are some of them are connected. They've got to be online to work, and others of them tag into their own cloud service, so that you give it permission to get your Google Photos or your Apple Photos or whatever you want, and then they store it in their cloud, and then you have to be online to use it. But the earlier ones, as we'll remember, were the ones you put your SD card in, and you just stuck it in a slot, and it didn't need to be connected at all. So I think there are different ways of doing it.
I actually read that some of them come with camera sensors, so they can turn on and off when there's no one in the room. But some people were saying that the frames, I think that Ian said you can get it with a frame, they affect the camera sensor. So some people have been saying that they're being faulty in that regard.
Right.
It does go off so if someone walks past the TV, it will come on, and it will come on for sort of 10 minutes. But if no one's in the room, it just goes blank.
Right.
I've seen
what if you don't move? If you're in the room, but just not.
It's a bit like being in an office where all the lights go out. You know, you're not doing any work.
And also some of them are tied up with Google Home. So, I mean, my Google TV, if I wanted to, I don't do it, but if I wanted to, it could just have a rolling photograph thing on the television in the same way. And also my Pixel tablet will do the same thing, hooked up with Home. But it seems like you either go for the clever way or the unclever way. And it sounds like it was probably something that people used to do more than probably they do now. So that kind of answers the question and probably mops up one aspect of the stuff we didn't cover on the last show. Let's leap into this show, though, and talk about street photography. Charlie has joined us to do exactly that, and I probably would like to give the floor to you, really, Charlie, and everyone will chip in as we go, of course, and you know, to just present and to kind of take away what you want to say about it. Really, if you get stuck, we'll ask you questions.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for having me, Ted. First, I guess, an introduction. So I'm Charlie, property manager from Brighton. I took up photography 2 years ago now, and I shoot with two cameras. Actually, I have to look at the bottom of this one so I can remember the name. My first one is a Ricoh GR3X with black mist, the black mist filter that's built in. And the second camera I use is a Sony A7C Mark II, with numerous lenses. I'm sure everyone here has bought many lenses and they don't use them, so I'm a sucker for that as well with the Sony system. I have many lenses that I don't use. Okay.
Tell us about the Ricoh. That's the one that I'm most interested in, and I think possibly Chris Kelly too.
The Ricoh's a great camera, actually, but I've always had like a love-hate relationship with it. On the one hand, it's really good, like if you're lazy and you don't want to carry lots of gear with you, you just want something you can put in your pocket. It's excellent, but also in that regard, so is a mobile phone. But with the Ricoh, you have more kind of ergonomics. Obviously, you can hold it and everything, but it's still not quite the same as a Sony. You know, the grip's not quite there. You have to hold it in a certain way, but it does allow you to get very close to the subject. I think they do a 28mm version and a 40mm version. I've got the 40mm version. So you can really, you know, get some good shots with it. I don't know for like environmental photography, but for street photography, for candid shots, it's a good camera, but you have to have the perfect conditions for that.
And it's got a nice big sensor?
Certainly not. Chris C will be able to tell you about the sensor. I think it's a 1-inch sensor in the Ricoh. So
it's APS-C, which is one down from full frame, but it's quite noticeable, or I found it to be noticeable in comparison.
So it's not something you'd want to use really at night time. You can, but you really have to use denoise in Photoshop or something like that with it, or maybe something like I think there's a third-party software called Topaz, just to try and get more out of it if you're going to shoot at night with it. If you're using it with flash, it's really good at night, but that's like a different style of shooting that's quite difficult. It's really something you have to use on like a sunny day, really perfect conditions. And even then you can't really use it at market stalls if you're like in Southeast Asia, for example, because you're going in and out of the sunlight, and that can it distorts the highlights in the camera. You just have to have constant light, really, to make use of it.
So you don't just hang around in Brighton, you do kind of travel quite a lot.
I usually like to take photos when I'm away. I find with Brighton or London, you really have to really work for the photos. You can't really camp on the spot and hope to get a good shot. Whereas with Asia, you're more sport for choice. You can kind of, the subjects come to you, but the footfall, the traffic isn't really, yes, you can go to Brick Lane in London, but it's not really the same, really.
Okay, well, I think Chris Clayton has proved that as well. You two don't travel together, do you? The Far East thing, it seems to be a theme.
Yeah, we were in Tokyo together.
Oh, right, okay.
Last year. Yeah, so
a year ago.
I was just going to mention, like Charlie was talking about the Ricoh flash images, the Camera Creations photos group. We've both put up a load of our street photos. And what's interesting is a lot of those were taken by us in the same place at the same time, but the photos are totally different. And there's a couple of Charlie's Ricoh flash photos on there that are really, really excellent. So I just encourage everyone to have a look at those. So
perhaps we can do that now then, Chris. If you'd like to explain a bit more about which ones you're talking about for our listeners, so they can look at the album at the same time. Which ones are you identifying there?
Well, I think Charlie will be able to tell you how it was taken, but the picture that I think one of my favourite pictures he's taken is this couple of Japanese girls in Tokyo. There's a flash right in the face, which is in the Creations group.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I don't know if everyone can see that. It's like a Japanese girl with a red shirt on.
Yep.
As we'll probably talk about later, I'm not a big fan of this kind of candid photography, but I think something about flash photography elevates these images by quite a distance. I don't know if Charlie wants to talk about the challenges of that and what it's like to sort of flash someone that close, but I think it makes a massive difference.
It's actually quite straightforward with flash. It's more about the psychological aspect, because obviously you can't be hidden. People are going to see you when you put a flash in their face. Once you get the power of the flash, like 1/8 or 1/16 or whatever you want to go with, then and you use a subject before you take the picture in the street. It doesn't have to be a person, like a lamppost or anything, just so you can see the reflection of the light and how bright it is versus the ambient light in the setting. Then you're good to go, and you can start taking pictures of people on a slow shutter speed. I think the photo Chris was referring to there, that was taken on a 1/115th of a second shutter speed with quite a high flash. But it is quite difficult because people really do react to you when you're out there and you're taking photos with flash. And on the one hand, you have to, me personally, I don't really want to be seen when I'm taking photos, but if you want to get a good photo, you need kind of eye contact, I find, some kind of reaction from the subject. And the only way you can do that is if you get noticed. So there's kind of that contrast. You got, on the one hand, you don't want to be seen. On the other hand, you have to be seen to get a good photo. So it's kind of balancing that.
So were those, in this situation here, were those two girls playing ball with you, or did you shoot before they had a chance to look at you?
So I basically stood in the street and I waited for people to. So when you shoot with the Ricoh, you have it's a case of where they try and turn a handicap into a feature. So it doesn't. It does have autofocus, but the autofocus on the Ricoh camera is unusable. So you have to use what's called snap focus. And with that, you set how many feet or how many meters you want something to be in focus. So I think for this shot, I did 1.5 meters.
Yeah.
So I just stood in the street, and I know 1.5 meters is like 1.5 arms lengths. And I waited for the subject to walk towards me. And once they got to that distance, then I pressed the shutter and I got the photo.
Could they not see you? Were you in darkness?
It was quite dark there. They didn't see me, but of course, once the flash goes off, they notice you straight away. And the reactions are usually positive, usually one of surprise as well.
Yeah. And they suddenly will have looked at you. Well, of course, while you were taking the top of those two girls, Chris was down the bottom taking shots of their legs by the looks of it.
Yeah, absolutely, Ted. Yeah.
It was, and that was without a flash by the looks of it.
Yeah, no flash, yeah.
So, yeah, tell us about that, Chris.
That's the same area, Chris.
That is Shinjuku.
Shinjuku.
So I think that actually was when you were, because yours is Shinjuku, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you were probably in the street, and I was.
No, I
on
think
the
my
street.
one was Ian Bundy took a photo in Japan, and it's in the same area. It's got like a red sign.
That's Shinjuku. That is Shinjuku.
Yeah. So it was in that area. Yeah, they were just actually ahead of the red sign. That's where I got the photo.
For the photo of the legs, I literally just put the camera on the floor and just kind of burst mode.
On the floor.
Yeah, I was on the floor. Yeah,
which brings us, Charlie, to another aspect of this whole street and candid photography, which is, we did kind of touch on it briefly before, but perhaps we can expand it now. Is that these two girls could have been accusing Chris of trying to get shots of their knickers and suddenly lumping one. So there is that whole thing about. I quoted the example on the last show of some. Street living person back in the day who kind of really had a go at me for taking a photograph of him or trying to when he was asleep in a church. And so there's that whole thing. What's your take on that kind of angle on it, Charlie?
I mean, the efficacy of street photos. I think I've only taken one photo of like someone who was homeless, and I didn't do it again. I didn't feel very comfortable doing it because it's kind of like cheating. You have the subject there; they're not really aware that you're there because they're sleeping or something. So I don't really think it's right to do that. So I don't do that personally. But if other people want to do it, obviously from a legal standpoint, as in the UK at least, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a public space. But then again, do you really want to publish that kind of thing online? I'm not so sure.
Right, okay. So, Chris, presumably these people didn't jump on you. Mind you, in the Far East, they might be more tolerant than an old street-living person in a church in London, I guess.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, Tokyo is so, as Ian will tell you, it's just absolutely manic. There's so many people that you can kind of get away with a fair amount in terms of where you put your camera, and no one really cares. But obviously, if you're in some kind of backwater, then people are going to be a bit more aware and concerned if you're sort of putting a camera in their face. So I think it kind of, you have to tailor your approach to where you are.
Charlie, tell us about eyes. I'm looking at more of these photographs now, and there's a chappie on a bike in a yellow jacket. There's a workman on some sort of stanchion with a blue hat on. There's also an Asian girl in front of a load of joss sticks or something. There's a lot of pictures here where you got the eye contact, and for me the strength of the photograph is the fact that you've locked onto the eyes.
Yeah, well, there's actually a story there. So the one where you have the gentleman on the bike in the green outfit, the green-yellow outfit, and then you have the builder with all the cables around him, they were taken maybe 5-10 minutes apart. And I actually had my backpack on, and I was showing some friends around Tokyo, and I had 2 cameras on me. I had the Sony A7 II with the 85mm lens, and I also had the Ricoh camera on me. So I had both of the cameras at the same time on my backpack, easily accessible. So the first one with the cyclist, my friends were saying, well, how do you use that Ricoh? It's very, very small. I said, well, when I take photos, I like to get, eye contact. And they said, well, how do you get the person's attention? And I said, well, it's simple. You just have to make your presence known. You have to not be invisible, and the person has to see you, which sounds strange to say because most people naturally, they try and hide when they take a photo. But with this cyclist, he wasn't really looking at me. He was kind of looking at the light, the traffic light. So I kind of hid behind the post and popped out with my camera, got his attention that way, and took his picture. I think it was a Ricoh, so it was a 40mm. That's how I got that one. Very light edit, just a color grade. Mm-hmm. And then with the second one, with the construction worker, he wasn't very happy. I don't speak Japanese, but he was, after I took the photo with the 85mm lens, I kind of saw some sparks flying. He was doing some welding or something. So I propped up the 85 on my arm so I can get a steady shot, and kind of took 2 bursts. And he saw me when I got the second shot, and he started shouting at me. It was maybe 5-6 meters up, and that's how I got that shot. So again, it's about getting the reaction. One good trick I've found to get eye contact is if you've got a proper camera, like a Sony camera, not the Ricoh, because that doesn't make a shutter sound. But with the Sony, you could put it in burst mode, and you can take a few fake pictures so someone can hear you shooting on the camera. And then they look round to see what you're shooting, and then you get their attention.
Right. And
then you get the eye contact. Mm-hmm. Then you can snap them.
Otherwise, give them 10,000 yen.
Yeah, otherwise, give them 10,000 yen. Yeah, exactly.
And what about the girl? It looks like that's a real setup, that one. Was it?
No, so this was just me walking about in Taipei. I was a bit annoyed on that day, and this always happens. I usually get good photos when I'm out for the whole day and I don't find anything. It was a very rainy day. I just arrived in Taipei, so I didn't really know the lay of the land. It's a lovely city. It's very unusual, though. It's very hard to shoot good photos there, just by the way it's built. And when you walk down the pavement or the sidewalk, they have these, because it rains a lot, like these concrete bollards to keep the rain off the pavement. So consequently, there's a lot of shadow. So I couldn't get any photographs of people on the pavement. It was very difficult to do that. So I went to a park. There was this park with these ramps going up and down. It's quite hilly. And opposite the park was this temple, this Confucian temple, very ornate, lots of smoke and incense coming from it. And I had the 85mm lens on the Sony camera. And I saw this subject here, and she was, fortunately for me, she was there for maybe half a minute praying, and she had a lot of people behind her, and they were also praying with her, and I didn't like that because it obviously disrupted the image I wanted to take. It was too much of a distraction. I just wanted the girl and the incense. So I waited until all the subjects turned round, and then I took, I think, 2 photos. Again, I didn't have to take many. And I was just lucky that I got that shot. Then I did a mild edit in Photoshop. Just underneath, there's a plinth or something, like a shelf, and it wasn't really symmetrical. So I just kind of I think I just used a clone stamp tool just to correct that. But otherwise, the photo is the same as I got in camera.
And have you purposely made it kind of grainy? I see around her face, around the bottom of her jaw, it feels like it was shot with Scotch Chrome 1000 or something.
No, I think I cropped in a little bit on the original photo. I was about 5, 6, 7 meters away, but I was elevated because she was on this plinth thing up some steps, and I wanted to get to the same height. So fortunately, in the park area, there was a ramp, and I kind of walked up it, and I managed to get her head on. But I did crop in the edit to really, get her in focus. But you're right, it is a little bit grainy.
I like that. No, I like grain. I think grain can be used positively. I used to do that very often when I was shooting with film. So that's no problem at all. Anyone else got any questions about the photographs? Oh, just before I hand over to anyone else, I did like the one with the guy with the umbrella. That's to me, that's real street photography. It's like he's got no idea that you're there, and he's just doing what he's doing, going about what he's doing, and I think that's a really good photograph.
Yeah, that was the first night in Tokyo. Very heavy rain, and you would have thought, like, a camera that's not weather sealed like the Ricoh is a bad choice. But of course, I had an umbrella, and the Ricoh is very small. You can kind of like tuck it in your jacket, really, when you're not using it. So it was very good. And you can, obviously, it's designed to be used one-handed. So I usually shoot it in aperture priority mode. Although on my Sony, I shoot in manual mode. So with the Ricoh, you can't really shoot manual. So I did aperture priority, and I just saw this character. He was fiddling about doing something with his wallet, and then I just took that shot.
I think that works really well. So lots of photographs in there from you, Charlie. Anyone else want to ask any questions about any of the other ones before we move back to the meat of street photography?
I was going to say, it's interesting, Charlie, that you're saying you like to make the eye contact. I mean, street photography was something that I used to enjoy when I was out and about, and I never particularly went for that eye contact thing. I think I posted a video up in the group, or maybe I just dreamt it, of a landscape photographer having a day out in Edinburgh with a street photographer named Sean Tucker. And he was talking about either being a hunter or a fisher. And he was saying the hunter is the person who's looking for the character and may even follow an individual to get that particular subject. And then the fisher is the person who finds a scene or an environment that they think is interesting, and then just waits for the people to arrive in that scene. I think I was very much in that fisher style, and one of my heroes is Martin Parr and his New Brighton shots, where he would mix quite strong daylight with flash. So I mimicked that, or had a go at it anyway. So I would use flash in daylight. So it was clearly less obvious than doing it at night time. But I wasn't particularly getting the attention of the subject in the way that you've done in these. And I have to say, like Ted, I really like the shots that you've taken. They're really interesting. But I don't think I was ever comfortable with that level of engagement with the subject. It's just different, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I mean, I think it depends on the individual. That you can't fit a style of photography to how you want to shoot if it's not how you want to shoot. If you're quite a introverted person, then maybe sticking a camera in someone's face isn't a good idea. But you can still get good photos, environmental photos, and more be on the sidelines. Just use a wider lens, or maybe like a zoom lens if you want to get more detail. But of course, with a zoom, you're going to have that compression, so you're going to lose some of the background. So you just really have to shoot the style that you're most comfortable with. It sounds obvious, but it's true. I'm uncomfortable putting a camera in someone's face, I'll be honest. But I'm more comfortable doing that in a foreign country, in an Asian country. Maybe that says more about me as an individual. But in the UK, I do find it quite difficult. Some people can be confrontational. In the UK, I've had that a few times.
I typically use sort of 65 to 85, was sort of my favoured length.
Not a 28.
Sorry? No. Oh, Chris's, what was it? Nine?
Yeah, I've got a 9.
Oh, 9mm. Go all out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could be that little bit further away and get them, but I would usually get them where their attention was looking out of the frame rather than looking at me.
Now, you see, I would actually argue, and Chris C would probably argue against me here, that the 85 is the perfect lens for most people, because when I use it, I'm very comfortable using it. I don't really feel noticed. I don't really have to get too close to the subject. It still allows you to be an observer without affecting the scene so much. And I can't remember the exact lens I've got. I think it's a Sony FE 85mm.
Just to be clear, we're talking about 85mm on full frame.
Yes. With the 85mm on the full frame, the lens I've got, the Sony FE, is quite compact. It's not like a big zoom lens. It's not like a 135 lens or a 200mm lens. It's quite small and you wouldn't get noticed with it. So that's a good lens if people want to feel comfortable, I would say, starting out. Certainly more comfortable than, say, like a 40mm lens, which is my favourite focal length, and it's very discreet. But at the same time, you've got to get quite close to the subject to pull it off.
On my Micro Four Thirds, now that we're talking about it, it struck me that I've got the only prime that I've got, I think I'm right in saying, is a 48. Is it 45 or 48, something like that, on the Micro Four Thirds? So yeah, it's at a 90 on a full frame.
Right.
That'll do the job.
I mean,
I've got one of those.
I was just going to say, I don't disagree with Charlie that the 85 is a good choice to start out. I just think that it's easy to get good photos, but I think it's really hard to get great photos with an 85. I think some of the pictures come out very samey because you lose the wider scene. You just end up with a lot of headshots.
That's true, but in order to get to that point where you're taking, really good photos, excellent photos, as you said, it's better to start somewhere and have something to get going with, so to speak.
Yeah.
And start off with an 85.
Yeah, well,
you can always zoom with your feet.
You can't
in most cases.
You can't always, but yeah, I take the point. I used to take the principle even further, and I used to shoot my candid street photography back in the film days with a 135 f2 on my Nikon, and also sometimes a 200mm. And I used to love doing that because nobody knew you were there, and they certainly didn't. Even if they saw you, they had no idea that you were taking a photograph of what they were doing.
I actually have a 135 lens. It's an excellent lens, but it's very big, very heavy.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that was obviously. I guess that
Full frame.
Yeah, things have changed. My film cameras were full frame, and the 135mm f2 Nikkor lens I used very regularly for that was not that huge at all. So I'm not quite sure how they did that, but it was quite discreet. Anyway, the point I'm making is that the kind of photograph I ended up getting is very much like the one, and I'm going to refer to the shared album again here. Charlie's taken a photograph of a girl sitting on a bench in front of an advert to do with football. And that was exactly the kind of photograph I loved taking. To me, that's the best of the bunch here, because that's exactly what I used to be after with street photography. And I would be a long way away from her. She would never have known I was doing it, and that's what I liked about it.
I was taken with an 85.
Okay. But anyway, that's what I did. And I tip my hat to people that are prepared to go and stick a camera in someone's face and get away with it. Oh dear. Anyway, so going back to the notes here, we've got some pros and cons about the some of those pros and cons we would already have covered, Charlie. But do you want to just lead us through any that we've missed out of your two lists?
Yeah, I think for people that want something easy, that don't like photo editing, and now I'm not familiar with the Fuji system, but I know you can get simulations for the Fuji cameras, and also in this regard, the Ricoh, that has built-in camera recipes or simulations or filters. I'm not sure what the correct term is, but that's very good if you don't really want to edit and you just want the photo that looks quite good out of camera. That would obviously apply it to the JPEG. Another few things here. Another good thing about the Ricoh, as I've already mentioned, is the built-in handicaps. The fact that you can't really make any adjustments to it means it's quite a good camera for a beginner. Although I would also counter that with the price. I don't think it's worth. I think it's like £1,100 or something new. I don't think it's worth that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very expensive, and also how many pro photographers actually use a Ricoh? I think a lot of people are probably being paid to endorse it, because I don't think you could really use it in a professional setting, being honest.
Okay.
The Ricoh camera.
Yep.
Something like a Sony's, that really covers everything, I would say. Interchangeable lenses. Also, the noise control is fantastic. I think I can go up to... I haven't got it here. There was one picture I took where I went up to about 10,000 ISO, and the noise was only just starting to appear, and it was like pitch black. So
the clear advantage, though, is to be able to put it in your front pocket of your jeans, and
yes and no. I would say if that's your goal, then you probably won't like me for saying this, but the best camera in that case would be your mobile phone.
Right. Okay.
Definitely, because it's always on you, and you can put it in your front pocket. Something like a Xiaomi 15 Ultra, whatever it's called. That's a really good camera phone. Something with a 1-inch sensor.
Mm-hmm. Which is a bit of a shame, isn't it? But certainly being able to conceal the carry, as you put, one of your points of the Pro is definitely the concealed carry, the size and shape make it disappear in your hand, you've said. Invisibility in street.
It is invisible. The subject's only going to see you once the camera's in their face. I mean, you can actually walk, right up to them. They're not going to see you, and then you just have it like I walk with it behind my wrist, and I kind of flick it out. And,
Brilliant.
In their face. And if it's in a crowded area, don't know if it's okay to do that, but then you can just walk away. It's happy days. No one's complaining. You've got your picture, and that's that.
I'm going to sing the praises for my GX7 in that regard, because I can put that, all right, not with the longer 85 equivalent lens, but with a shorter, wider lens, you can get some real nice little pancake lenses for it. I can stick that in a cargo pants pocket, so maybe not your skinny jeans, but I can put it in a trouser pocket or in a light jacket pocket. I can carry that, because I've got big paws, pretty much in one hand and keep it out of sight. And the real killer feature for the GX7 is the EVF that tilts through 90 degrees. So, Ted, you'll know what I'm talking about. In the days of having the twin lens reflex cameras, where you look down into it, you do the same with that.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're looking down, people just think you're fiddling with the camera. They've got no idea you're actually looking at them and taking pictures of them, because the EVF tilts up. So I think that's a fantastic feature for street photography, as well as for taking pictures of girls' ankles.
Yeah.
So
some of the pros of the small form factor anyway. So some of the cons. The big one for me would be no viewfinder. But you're going to argue, Charlie, aren't you, that that's not the point?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started out, I would say, because I've only been shooting for 2 years, the first year of my journey, I hold my hands up. I didn't actually use a viewfinder. I like the screen. But I found the more I shot, the more I preferred the EV. I feel almost camouflage when I'm looking through it. It's a hard way to describe, but you can really kind of focus in on the scene and get your composition better if you have a viewfinder. But when you're starting out, I don't think it's necessary. In fact, I think it's a bad idea because it's too difficult for a beginner to use a viewfinder. It's not something they're going to be used to, really. Something like a point and shoot's far easier. It's more intuitive.
So have you got a viewfinder bolt-on for the Ricoh?
No, because it wouldn't actually I wouldn't actually see the same thing that the sensor sees.
No.
So I don't use that. Whereas with the Sony, obviously, when I look through the EV, I will see what the sensor sees, which is what I want. But I think with the Ricoh, you're just adding another handicap to it, aren't you? I mean, all I have is like a thumb grip and a protector for the lens, a lens protector cover when I'm not using it. That's it. You don't really need any accessories for it. And of course, remember to tape up all the ports with electrical tape to make it more weather sealed.
Okay. The UI was another of your points, which is not particularly great. We're talking about the Ricoh again here.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the UI, I think I'm so used to mobile phone UIs, although I don't use a mobile phone to shoot. I'm just used to it, for daily life and work, that I would prefer like an Android skin or an Android UI on a Ricoh camera. I think that would be really good because it's very clunky. I know we're talking about the Ricoh here, but the Sony UI is actually much worse. It's completely broken. But the UI on the Ricoh is pretty bad. You really have to fumble through the settings just to find small things that you want to do. And of course, you can add like shortcuts, so you have those settings attached to your main screen. But it's not intuitive the way it's done. It's not well laid out or anything. And there's not many physical buttons on the camera where you can assign settings to. I think you have 2 buttons on the Ricoh where you can actually custom assign settings, and that's not really enough.
Sure. You've mentioned cost, and so we've done that because they're silly expensive for what they are. But the lack of a tilt screen, Chris Kelly just demonstrated with his camera that he can get around that. But how do you what do you think about that, Charlie?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, it does affect many of my shots because I would like to try and get photos where my camera is almost on the floor. Now, I do have a tilt screen on the Sony camera, but it's a horizontal tilt screen. It doesn't flip out, so I'm always worried about snapping it. So I don't really use it that way. So it's difficult to get low angle shots, which like Chris C did with the lady's ankles in Shinjuku. I would not be able to get shots like that because I can't see what I'm taking a photo of, and I can't obviously look through the EV. So I do think that's a hindrance, not having that ability on the Ricoh and also on the Sony.
Okay. You've mentioned a couple of famous people. No, one famous person here in terms of... 2 famous people in relation to street photography and the Ricoh. Do you want to lead us through that?
Well, I think these are 2 very important street photographers. They are quite extreme. They both use flash. I would say Bruce Gilden, who's been around since I think the 1970s even, or maybe in the early 1980s, he would be what I describe as like a confrontational photographer. He would literally walk up to people and put a flash in their face, maybe sometimes upset them so that, that's not okay. And Trevor Wisecup, he's a new photographer, quite young. He's probably been around for about 5-6 years. He does a similar kind of thing. He uses flash. He has 2 cameras, and he would try to get kind of aggressive or confrontational photos. But both their photos are very good. I think Gilden shoots exclusively black and white, and Wisecup, he shoots color film with flash. But their photos are quite unique. And again, they will have eye contact, which is something I try and cultivate. It's something I try and get in my photos, but it's easier said than done. It is difficult, I find, psychologically, to get the eye contact in a photo.
Do you think that paying a model is making it not really street?
I think that's cheating, really. I mean, if you're doing that, you might as well use like Midjourney or AI or some generative model, because it's not really. I mean, yes, it's photography, but it's not candid photography. It's not candid street photography.
Sure.
But who am I to judge? If you're getting the same outcome, does it really matter?
Good question. What makes a good street photo? Now, you've put some pointers in this section here in the notes as well. We have covered some of them as we've gone, but just pick up anything that we've missed out, would you?
Let's see now. Pattern recognition is really important. So obviously when you're walking down the street with your camera, you don't have to have a frame of reference. You don't have to say, right, today I'm looking at rule of odds and gesture and layering. No one does that. You just have to go out with like just an open mind and maybe say, okay, well, I would like to have like some juxtaposition in my photos today, or I might like to, try some repetition or, leading lines, that kind of thing. But you have to really, it's like when you draw or when you paint, you're adding things to your image to make a better image. But when so drawing and painting, they're additive. But when you're taking a photo, it's subtractive. You're subtracting elements away from the image to create the picture that you want, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So you're basically standing around trying to get the right image, really. You don't want certain people or streetcars or trees in your scene. So you have to move about to get the image that you're after. Otherwise, you might have the image you want, but you're going to have certain elements in it that distract from the image, and that's not what you want. So photography, not just street photography, but any type of photography, is a subtractive process, whereas traditional art mediums and art forms, they're going to be additive because you're applying paint to a canvas, aren't you? Whereas photography is the inverse.
Although Chris Creighton and Ian would probably disagree, because you can now, with digital tools, do what you like afterwards.
Well, you can, but again, that's cheating, isn't it? I like Photoshop. I play about with Photoshop, but unfortunately, with my style of photography, you don't really need Photoshop. You're just talking like a light color grade and Lightroom, really. Photoshop's maybe only to remove some street cables or, a flock of birds or something. You don't really need to go to town when you're editing a street photo.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, and last point that I put in was about the 40mm versus 28mm, and I put a list in the recording notes here of the 7 versions of the GR3, and
I can see, I'm quite shocked,
and the 3 versions so far of the GR4. And so your take on 20, particularly the question of 28 v 40mm, I think.
Well, I think I think really it's like it's the narcissism of different views, isn't it? You can like the 28 or you can like the 40mm, but we're all on the same team. We're all photographers. It doesn't matter what focal length you're using. It's just a tool to get the job done. You could be a street photographer and use a 135mm lens on a full frame camera, which I have done. Mm-hmm. As long as you get the image you want, I think that's all that matters. We can talk about, different schools of thought about which lens is right, but it's more about what you're comfortable with. I've tried shooting with a 28 and it's extremely difficult. You need to be at like a Halloween festival or Brighton Pride or Notting Hill Festival or somewhere where there's a lot of carnage and energy and interaction, to pull off a 28mm lens, because you have to be so close to your subject.
Yeah, sure. Okay, and I think probably the section that you put in here about the Sony camera, we've probably covered as we've gone along, haven't we? But any final thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm biased here because it's my first camera, the Sony A7 II. I think it's a very good camera. It's a very small camera. It's not pocketable. I think you could probably get a pancake lens for it, but then again, you're going to be losing out on the aperture. I think I saw like a 28mm pancake lens that's like f5 or f6 or something. So it's not really something you can use all the time, as a pocketable camera, really. But if you want a good all-round camera, it's excellent, especially for the price. I mean, you can get it online or used at a good deal,
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, Chris Clayton will agree with you there. The last bit that I added was about, I think, probably what we've spoken about before, about street and what my experience was. And the whole kind of change between street and film, and I don't know, I think a lot of it depends on where you live and so forth. Chris Clayton, you had some thoughts about street that you put in the notes here, about architecture and landscape being a priority.
For me, yeah, I mean, Chris Kay earlier was talking about hunters and fishers. That's something that I've heard before. I'm definitely a fisher. I will walk around, as I've sort of got into photography primarily through landscape, then moved on to cityscape and architecture. That's the first thing I see. I'll find a scene, but street photos obviously need people in there, and I've put quite a few different images up on the Google Photos group where they are primarily pictures of cityscapes or architectural shots or tunnels, but they all have people in them, and the images would not work without the person in there. But I do kind of just camp out. I find the composition, and I'll just wait until someone walks in the right place, to balance the frame.
Do you have a cut-off limit for how long you wait?
Oh, no, not really. It depends who's with me, how annoyed they are. I mean, like the King's Cross Tunnel one, I think I was there for about an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. I got hundreds of photos, but you're going to get a good one with that many. But yeah, for me, it's all about like the environmental side of it. I'll find a scene. I'll just wait for the people to get into place. I'll wait for either sort of subject separation. There's an image I put in there on top of Shibuya Sky. People are just silhouettes, but I've waited until I've tried to avoid any crossover between the people. But I've got the scene first, and I'll wait for the people to arrive later.
Right.
I have put a couple of other images in there that are more candid, just to show that I do occasionally do that. But
I really like your photo, the one of the tuk-tuk with the two guys talking with the light coming out of the tuk-tuk.
Yeah, that was just kind of off the cuff image that I took in Bangkok. But yeah, that one always seems quite popular. I think the lighting. It's doing all the heavy lifting on that photo, I think, because it's kind of very dark, but it's just lit up in these three sections that lights the people's faces up. But yeah, for me, I'm more of a laid-back street photographer, I guess. I don't stick it in people's faces. That's not my style. But as you say, each to their own, isn't it?
A bit more like me. Ian, what are your thoughts on street? Have you tried it? Do you do it?
I've tried it. I mean, I nothing in the sort of as close up as Charles. And again, I would really struggle with the flash thing. I'd rather sit and not be seen and have a wider view. But it's been interesting listening in and listening to the sort of the techniques and how you get those shots. I think it's a lot easier, I found in Tokyo, to get those, to lose the inhibitions a little bit, to get closer to people, and they're less sort of bothered about you taking shots. This country, I mean, London is probably a little bit easier as well. But locally and things, it's not something I would go out locally to try and do street photography, I don't think. But yeah, it's definitely something I'd like to do. And again, I see the framing and everything like that, and it's like, yeah, I can appreciate the skill and everything, and the thought that goes into the pictures as well, not just getting lucky, getting a shot of somebody.
Thanks very much, Charlie, for joining us. It's been great to have a chat about street photography and look at your work.
Thank you for having me.
Really, really good. If you want to hang about for the rest of the show, do feel free and chip in with what else is being said. And we'll do that right now. We'll move on to a brief. I say again, panel catch up. Last show, I think this went on for about 45 minutes. So a brief catch up with people's photographs, and hopefully, if you can describe it for our listeners, the ones you're talking about, they should be in the shared album as well, so people can look at what you're talking about. Do you want to go first, Chris C?
Okay, thankfully, you'll be pleased to know I didn't actually take any pictures the last couple of weeks. I've been busy redecorating, but I did go back and sort of collate a collection of my Adamski effect photos. The Adamski effect is like a Photoshop technique where you use motion blur on parts of the image, but you keep subjects in focus. So I've uploaded a few examples in the group. Be obvious which ones they are. But these are the kind of photos I'm looking at probably putting up on the wall after the redecoration, because they've got this dreamy, ethereal quality to them. But I would just recommend anyone that wants to sort of dabble in some Photoshop editing work, give the Adamski effect a go. It's really easy to do. There's loads of tutorials on YouTube, and the effects can be really effective. So yeah, I would recommend people give that a go. And also, before we move on, I did do one very extreme edit to a photo of Big Ben. This will jump out in the camera creations group. It's kind of a yellow and blue, ultra saturated kind of stylized image. I'm just interested whether you think this counts as photography. I have included in the notes the original image, so you can see that there was a photo underneath there somewhere. But I don't know, what do you guys think of that?
It's AI.
It's not AI.
I think it's really art. I think it's really cool, and it's amazing with what you can take that original image and what you can turn it into. And I think, again, maybe disagreeing with Charles, that's really the artistic flair that you can take, and what you can add to something that is just maybe a boring photograph, and then add your touch to it. I think that things like that are really interesting to me, anyway. But again, good thing is we're all different. So
yeah,
I suppose Charlie would argue that, well, you might as well not have taken the photograph. You can just get it from somewhere else.
Yeah. I think I kind of agree as well, to a point. But
Charlie?
I do wonder if any of you youngsters will know who I'm talking about, but I'm sure Ted will. It reminded me of the sort of stuff that Tony Hart used to do in Vision On, which was it starts smudging things around, and you never knew quite where it was going to end up, and it looked like something like this.
Well, that's exactly how the image came about. All I was trying to do was try out a new masking technique, which I'd seen on YouTube, on Photoshop, how to mask out buildings, which is something I do a lot. So I wanted to try it out, and
I really
through the
like
process
it.
of doing that, I ended up doing this image.
I really
so you can see that.
Sorry,
how
go
much
on.
work. I was just going to say, all the top of the building there, that's all masked out. And obviously, the whole of the sky has been removed. So that was a fair amount of work, to be honest.
Did you use a pen tool to do that, or did you use a built-in AI to mask?
This wasn't either. It was kind of RGB selections.
Oh, the channels.
Yeah, it was channels, and then some various bits and pieces after that as well, and then some kind of remedial work to sort of clear up the edges here and there. But yeah, But you're right. I could just go on Midjourney and type in, Big Ben AI image and probably get the same thing.
Yeah, but
you can do that with any photo these days.
That's fine. You've had fun doing it, and I think it's a really nice image. So, or a very nice piece of artwork, which is great. Okay,
the bird's real.
The birds are not real.
No. The birds are missing in the photograph, and the crane is as well. You've lobbed off the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Ian. What have you been up to the last fortnight?
I finally got the the gumption to get out of bed this morning. So talk about last minute of not going out last time. I thought I had to get out and get some shots, and I've been toying away of getting a new camera, something small that I can do some street with, but that hasn't happened yet. So I got up early this morning, did sunrise. Beautiful thing about sunrises at this time of year, it's 7:30 in the morning, so it's not exactly super early. So I headed down to South Wold, got there 30 minutes before sunrise, and it was a real epic one this morning. Really loved it, of just having a play around. And also, so I got a number of the pier. It's quite an iconic pier at South Wold. The colour was pretty epic this morning, and again, long exposure in D-filter to get the first shot there. And then it was some ladies going swimming at 7:30 in the morning, and getting the shot of them, and that was the really thing about the back to shooting people and being conscious of shooting people. So that was a struggle for me. I went back and spoke to my wife about it. It's like, it was a wonderful sunrise, and there were two ladies in the water, and I wanted to get the silhouette, and she's like, they were just looking at you like a dirty old man with a camera. But I managed to get a few from a distance, and I had a little bit of a play with the colouring on it a little bit. I quite like the blue on those pictures. So yeah, I think the incentive is just getting out there and shooting, and you'd be surprised what you can actually shoot, and enjoyed the whole process. So it's sort of giving me the incentive to get out more, because you'd be surprised what happens, and surprised that getting a sunset like that, sunrise like that, in the morning. So yeah, so that's one
nice,
occasion,
yeah.
lastminute.com doing this morning. So
very nice indeed.
I am jealous of your East Coast sunrises here, because they come right over the middle of the sea, don't they?
Yeah, and I was, again, very unprepared this morning, and the alarm went off, and I was like, I'm getting up, and then managing to get half an hour before sunrise, and then a little bit of time to position yourself was quite nice, rather than super rushing. But yeah,
you weren't tempted to Photoshop out the kind of wooden groin that's overlapping the pier on the left,
on the left hand side.
Yeah,
I did chop in on it, and I thought it was probably lining up with the groins to go along with the pier. So, to be honest with you, I just had a quick play with those this morning when I came back. The main thing was trying to get a shot of the swimmers in the water that didn't look too pervy. So yeah, and getting a nice colour balance to those. So yeah, it's again surprising what you can do when you actually do get out and take some shots.
I used to find that you are less likely to be considered pervy if you've got a tripod.
Yeah, I've got a bright orange surround for my camera as well, so I stick out like a sore thumb with a. So yeah, but with the tripod, yeah, you're a professional perv.
Yeah, that's right.
Wear a high vis as well. And do whatever you want.
It looks as though you're not a perv. Okay. Right. Let's move on because time's pressing on. Incidentally, for my money, I like the red beach hut, Ian. I thought that was really nice. All these shots are in the album though, so link in the show notes to that. So do have a look at those, and we'll press on again into rumours and news. Over to you, Chris Kelly, Chris Clayton.
Just the one rumour, which is basically a confirmed release of the Canon R6 Mark III. This is kind of their hybrid mid-range full-frame camera. This will be going right up against the Sony A7 IV, probably end of this year or beginning of next. But the specs look good. You've got, the main spec here is 40 frames a second. That's electronic shutter, but we'll wait to see on the mechanical. You've got 6.5 stops of IBIS. I think that was also 2 stops better than the A7 IV. So the A7 V has got a couple of targets to reach here, and it will be around €3,000. So similar to what the A7 V will be. So watch this space for that. That's the only rumour. The news, I don't normally include these kinds of stories, but it was in keeping with the street theme for the week. From Uzbekistan, they've made photographing people in public illegal. I just included this because it's obviously in keeping with the street theme and the ethics of taking pictures.
Sure.
I think this is terrible. I'm a massive free speech advocate, and this is a massive restriction on that free speech, in my opinion. And I did link the Petapixel article in the notes here, and they seem to be suggesting that there's been some police corruption issues and police abuse issues that people have been photographing, and there's suggestions that this might be a way of stopping that being made public. But my worry is that any kind of dystopian law that gets passed in another country, our government will look at and go, oh, that looks like a good idea, and before you know it, we'll have similar ones. I know in Germany they have a similar kind of law. It's not quite as strict as that, but I am worried. I think that there might be laws that come to this country where you can't photograph people in public. Do you think I'm being paranoid? Or
no, we've in our area they've started doing the facial recognition vans and things so yeah.
They can photograph you, Chris. But
they can photograph you, but you can't photograph them. Yeah. Edging towards the police state.
I think we are, but maybe we need a coffee time podcast to talk about that one.
They're going to have a real job, though, in terms of mobile phone photography to do any of that. So, because, as we know. Anyway, moving on, Chris.
Yeah, new lens. TT Artisan, purveyor of weird lenses, including 9mm, if that's your thing. They've got a 17mm tilt shift, which will be available on all full-frame mounts for about £500. So that's not bad for a tilt shift lens, which I normally charge quite a premium. If you're not sure what a tilt shift does, is it eliminates perspective distortion. So if you're looking up at a tall building, this will make that tall building straight. So for me, that's something that's really appealing, because I do correct for distortion in Lightroom, but that chops quite a large amount of the image out. So you have to plan for that when you take the photo, that you need a lot of space around it. So I've been looking at tilt shift lenses, but I'm put off by the weight, so over a kilogram. So it's not really a sort of take with you lens, just on the off chance you need.
What's the aperture with that tilt shift lens?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
F4 it says.
F4. Oh yeah. But you're going to be probably on a tripod most of the time. I think if you wouldn't ever have a wide open shot, because you're looking at architectural stuff. But and also it's quite wide. So another application of tilt shift is, you've probably seen these images where they have like a toy town look to them, which makes sort of normal scenes look like kind of macro scenes. But I think at 17mm it's probably too wide. They're normally done on a 50mm, but it's an interesting lens. But
we certainly could do a theme of tilt shift at some point. It sounds like Chris Kelly knows about it as well, so that could be an interesting theme one time.
Yeah, I've never used one. So
know about it, but never had one.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Okay.
Same. Maybe if one of us gets one. Another lens launch, Filtrox 50mm 1.4 Pro. Despite the name, the Pro lines is not their best. They have a lab as well, which is the top of the range stuff. This Pro's the kind of their mid-budget offering. This is £500 for a 1.4 50mm, which is very good value, but it's 800 grams, which is probably sort of 50% heavier than its competitors. And I did only look at one review, and it was incredibly soft, wide open. So you get what you pay for once again with lenses. And the last bit of news, on the Ricoh train again, GR4 Ricoh, it came out about 2 months ago. They're already offering, or they will be offering, new variants to add to the long list of existing variants on the GR3. The HDF, which is the Black Mist, which Charlie has the HDF version of his Ricoh. But for a Ricoh First, they're going to have a monochrome sensor version.
I don't get that. I mean, why on earth would anyone specifically pay 1,100 quid for a camera that only shoots mono?
Well, I was going to say,
at this point, they're just stacking handicaps.
Well, yeah. It seems like it, yeah. They're just going to take one more thing away from you. But I did put in the notes here that are they going to put a Leica and charge an extra grand or two to have no colours? Because if you buy a Leica M11 monochrome, you have to pay an extra £2,000 for the privilege of having no colours.
Bonkers.
So, yeah, I don't see the point, but I'm sure they'll sell out like all the others do.
Yeah.
That is the end of Rumours and News this week.
That is the news. Okay, Chris Kelly, we jumped over anything for the last fortnight that you wanted to feedback, so do you want to do that now if you've got anything or not?
I'll quote from someone else in the notes who said, "Naff all."
Fair enough. Okay, we'll be back in a fortnight's time with another show. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks ever so much once again for Charlie for joining us, and great thanks to all the members of the team as usual that have turned up and hopefully entertained you for the last hour or so. tedsalmon.com/camera creations is our website. We've also got the Camera Creations Google shared album, link in the show notes for that. If you're listening to this, you can follow along and look at the photographs we're talking about. There's quite a lot in there also that haven't been talked about, but you can look at those and enjoy them because they should have their names on as to who's been taking them, has taken them. Apart from that, last shout for tedsalmon.com, which is where you can find the links to all the MeWe groups and all the other audio podcasts that we're involved in, me and the team. And just to say goodbye, and hopefully you'll be able to join us again in 2 weeks' time. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Cheers all.
Bye all.